Hello and welcome to Make the Logo Bigger. My name is Brenton. This podcast is your gateway into the world of advertising production, crafted especially for those who are stepping in new, aiming to become producers, or simply eager to understand the inner workings of advertising and marketing. We're here to share insights and knowledge you've been looking for, with stories, tips, and real conversations from the pros. We're simplifying the process for everyone with a production curiosity. Whether you're just starting out or keen to explore the production side of ads, you've found the right place. Let's jump in. Today, we've got a bit of a different episode for you. Yes, we are diving back into the production trenches with one of our former guests, executive producer Nat Taylor. As many people know, Nat is a powerhouse in the production world, known for her ability to navigate the chaos and keep projects on track, no matter how wild, mad, or crazy things get. And that's why I asked her back to do these episodes, which are affectionately called War Stories. It's a working title. Yes, it will evolve as we go along. But what is it? Well, War Stories. It's those dinner party-worthy tales of production nightmares, creative egos, and unexpected crises that somehow turn into valuable lessons. From wrangling high-maintenance directors on multi-million-dollar Campari shoots to navigating near disasters on set, Nat has seen it all. She shares the lessons learned, the moments that shaped her approach, and why she no longer works with difficult people. Plus, we talk about fostering new talent in the industry and why safety always comes first. It's an episode packed with insight, humour, and a few battle scars. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's get into it with Nat Taylor. Hey, Nat Taylor, we've got you back. It's such a pleasure. I'm honoured that you actually have said, yes, I'll come back and have another chat with you. That's so appreciative. I know your podcast has done very, very well. It's it's right up the top with people who are listening. So it's getting a lot of engagement, which is great. We are here to talk. I've affectionately called it War Stories. It probably could have a better title, but these are, and I think you've put it before when we've had chats offline, these are dinner party conversations where, my God, something's happened to you in the world of producing and production where you've had to navigate yourself through. It could be a crisis, could be anything. And ultimately you get something from it. You learn something from it. So we are here to chat about those today. And so I believe you have a couple. So let's kick it off. Let's start with your first war story. What have you got for us?
My first war story. Well, I had a few that I was thinking about this morning before we hopped on here. One would be from a very long time ago when I used to work at RSA, Ridley Scott's company, and it was a big job. So I was shooting with a director who will remain nameless only because he doesn't come out well in the story. And he was somewhat notorious for being very difficult to work with. And this was a campaign for Campari that we were going to be shooting in Milan. And at the time, it was the most expensive campaign that Campari had ever made. And the stakes were very high. You know, they, in terms of the hero talent, it was this beautiful woman who, you know, ultimately drinks the Campari in this glamorous bar. Our reference for what they wanted her to be was our brief was to find the next global supermodel. And I was like, okay, sure, that's totally easy. So we did, I think, 2 or 3 rounds of casting in Paris and, you know, finding incredibly beautiful women, and finally found the one that was, you know, our perfect woman. But yes, there was just a lot of pressure all the way through pre. And this particular director, very difficult to work with. I think when we got to Milan, I obviously put him in, you know, the best hotel I could find, and he had a suite. In the week and a half of pre, we were there before the shoot. He made me change his suite 4 times because there was something wrong each and every time. That was the sort of it was a very classic thing that he always did whenever he was shooting abroad, which was a lot. He'd always make his production team move his rooms because there was always some reason. So that's the kind of fun that we're dealing with. And I can't remember, I think it was a 3 or 4 day shoot. And it was on the second day we had scheduled, and it had all been planned, obviously, sometime in advance, that we were starting on a close-up shot of our beautiful actress. And we'd made this incredible glamorous bar, and we had about 150 extras who were all slowly being put through hair and makeup and wardrobe and stuff because we weren't using them till later in the day. This particular director had a habit of just being very cliquey with his DOP. It was a very famous cinematographer, and they would just go off and be 2 little chums who wouldn't talk to anybody else and would come up with their own decisions, even though everything else had been planned. So we get to set on the second day. We're already, getting prepared for this close-up of our hero talent. And the director comes in and barks, "No, I want to start on a wide shot." And everyone's like, "Well, we're not ready for a wide shot yet. We've got to process 150 extras." Some of them have, they'd all been, half of them have maybe been started, but we're a couple of hours away from that. And then he threw all his toys at the pram, made a big fuss about how nobody in Italy knew how to do their jobs and everyone's incompetent and blah, blah, blah. And it just went on and on. And there was this very sort of hostile moment for about half an hour where I'm trying to calm him down, deal with how we could process people faster, and then also deal with the agency and the client and try and keep them on side so they don't notice that things are perhaps not going exactly as planned. And we had this first AD who was supposedly the best first in Italy, this huge man who I think had just about enough of this director the day before. And then on this day, particularly as he was being, abused for his incompetency, back with us with all the talent, it gets about 10 a.m. and we're almost ready to turn over, and my first comes storming over to me in front of all of the Campari client and the agency and just goes, "Arrivederci," and just storms off set. And I'm like, okay, good. So I'm left with this just enormous shoot. There's my second AD can barely speak English, so that's who I now have running the job with me. We've got, I don't know, around 150 talent, a crew of 60. I feel like every single light in Milan, every 12K is just going vroom, 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 and I'm there just like, oh, I just wanted to throw up immediately. The lesson that I learned from this super fun experience was that I just don't work with directors like that anymore. I think there was very much a time when that was what was considered the way that if you were a creative genius, you had to be difficult, and you had to ask for far more than what was achievable. Otherwise, your heart wasn't in it. There was some sort of level of difficulty equaling passion and creativity, which is just nonsense and not necessary at all. So we did manage to get through the shoot. It was a beautiful job. Campari were very happy with it. It all worked out. I think that's the other thing I learned, was that no matter how ridiculous a situation is, we are all just cogs in a larger machine. So your first AD, quite important. Your director, quite important. Your producer, quite important. But actually, if one piece is taken away, the machine will still go. By the time you've had go ahead on a job and you have an on-air date, you're going to make it. Even if it's a very last minute hero talent or a location or something falls through or happens where you think this is unsolvable, it is solvable and it will work its way out. So it's sort of, even in those moments where you think you are really stuck, somehow you'll find a way through.
Well, that's the first, that starts with a bang, Nat. I don't know if you've got that much money involved, you've got a high, a top end director, you've got ultimately all the best people there, and then it all goes to shit, let's say, because of one individual. Lesson you've learned: you don't work with shitty people. I think that is certainly well understood in the industry, particularly in our small industry these days.
Yeah.
That you just can't work with people that are like that. And what's it like for you now? I'm assuming that you work with the same people pretty much. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, I'd say we have a core team of people that we love, that we trust, and we know that they're going to deliver. But in sort of equal part to that, I think it's also really important that we create opportunities for new, particularly young, diverse people who may not have had the opportunities to come into our industry in other ways. So we always make sure we have some staples, some people that we know we can rely on. They will turn up. They will always be early. They will always have more things than they said they would. That they will always over deliver, because those are the people that we love. And then that gives us the space to be able to plot in a few other people who may be new to us and, might be needing to learn. In fact, I've got a project at the moment that we're bidding on for no, I shouldn't say, for a client. And they're really interested in, creating a space for an up and coming director. But the concept's quite big. So we've actually paired together a really beautiful sort of more high-end director who's happy to take on board a younger up-and-coming female director who's, making beautiful stuff in the sort of music video space, but not really there yet for, it probably wouldn't be considered comfortable. Clients wouldn't feel comfortable giving her a big project, but this way she can shadow on a big project and go through the whole thing, and we can have them as a bit of a team. And I feel like she'll actually bring something to it with her. She's very cool. She's the lead singer of a band, and she stars in and directs all of her own music videos. And she's got a real interesting eye and a sort of finger on the pulse of what young people like as a vibe. So I feel like she'll bring something interesting to it. But then we've also got that backbone of someone who's, been a really competent commercials director for 20 years. So, sort of trying to find those things where we can have people we know and trust and love, but also creating space for new people to find their feet as well. Yeah.
So it comes around. Hey, what's the second one you've got?
Okay, the next one. So this is also from a while ago, I'm afraid. See, the thing is all my horror stories are from a long time ago because I only work with nice people now, so I don't have them anymore. No, so this one was, I was working at a production company called Garrett's in London, and we had he was kind of a new thing on the ground at the time, a director called Ben Sedley, and we'd been approached by Muddy Fox that make mountain bikes. And they had this really lovely concept, which was in the UK, we have fox hunting. Boo. It's a traditional thing, and as you'd imagine, the sort of mountain biking young youth culture people very anti fox hunting. And so the concept was, instead of traditional fox hunting, rich men on horses and chasing after a poor little fox through the forest, this was a gang of Muddy Fox riders on their mountain bikes with all their helmets and stuff, looking pretty fierce, in a pack chasing a fox hunter through the forest. So it was like, a role reversal thing. It was fun, and it was, obviously showed off the bikes and how they could be really dynamic and, move around and stuff. So we had all these amazing world champion mountain bike riders, but they're young. They're like 18, 19 years old, and they're used to being on particular courses that they've practiced on, not through forests where there's like broken wood, and I don't know, like this is a pretty dangerous thing for them to be going fast on tracks that they've never been on before. And also they're in a group, and normally they would be doing all of their stunts or whatever they do individually. So there are two elements to it that they've never done before, which is being in a group, and then also being on really rough terrain that we can't control. And I was quite nervous about it. My insurance company wouldn't insure the shoot properly, so I was taking on a lot of personal liability. I was young, I was maybe 23, but Ben was so desperate to shoot this thing, and I was like, okay, we'll do it. So we get to the shoot, and I, the night before, I haven't slept, and I'm absolutely paranoid that one of these beautiful 18, 19-year-olds is going to break their neck going through a forest in a dangerous way. And we get to the shoot, and every time we're getting them to maneuver from one place, through those shots, Ben's going, faster, closer together. And I'm going, whatever you feel comfortable with, and I'm so concerned about the riders. I really had sort of taken my eye off the ball a little bit with the fact that we had a quad bike. The camera was on the back of a quad bike that was tracking us as we were going through. And I happened to have a very beautiful PA at the time, Becky. And Steve, who was our quad bike driver, obviously quite fancied Becky, and was just flirting outrageously with her in the morning and showing off on his quad bike because, I don't know, I think he thought that would be a way to Becky's heart. We'd moved we had a lot to shoot in the day, and we'd moved from our first location to the second one. And in between those two moves in the forest, he'd obviously been trying to show off to Becky doing something stupid on his quad bike. The whole thing had flipped and landed on him, and his ear came away from the side of his head. It was disgusting. It was so terrifying. There was so much blood. And it was about 10:45 in the morning. And I mean, I had a mini ambulance with us at the edge of the forest, so I got him to there pretty quickly, and then he was taken to hospital. But it was that very early on in my career, that feeling of like, on the one hand, oh my God, I'm responsible for this person, and he's had a very serious accident, and I need to focus on getting him to treatment as soon as possible and what we can do with that. Divided with my other responsibility that Muddy Fox, the client, has paid a lot of money for this whole crew to be there, and it's not their fault that this has happened, and they still need to get the footage that they're paying for. Like, the shoot is still going to cost however many hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever it was, to shoot that day. So I have a responsibility to them to continue the shoot and to get the footage that we need, even though we don't have a quad bike person anymore. So I think that was a really interesting lesson for me about knowing what your priorities are, and I think one of the big ones for me has always been safety. I mean, safety was important to me at that time too, but it is now, forever has ever been, indelibly marked in my brain that safety of all not only the cast, but the crew. People do stupid things, people they don't mean to. So as much as you can have safety officers and make sure everyone's wearing high vis and the harnesses and sometimes there might be a relationship or something that's going on set that you just need to be aware of, to go, hey, I can see that you think it might be quite funny. It might even be something as simple as we're shooting in a location where they serve alcohol and it's near the end of the shoot and someone's like, oh, let's just get a beer. And you're like, actually, no, we're not allowed alcohol on set. And I'm always like to be fun, but I also have to be the fun police, and my job is to make sure that everyone gets to work and gets home, in exactly the same state that they arrived. Yes, making sure that, safety is a priority, because that was not very fun.
How do you find managing those kind of situations personally with yourself?
I think what I would say is always just take a breath. There's always, everything is solvable. I think, yes, definitely personal harm. I think it just becomes a hierarchy of what do we need to deal with first. I think in all situations like that, where there's something genuinely bad has happened, and usually it involves someone having some kind of physical harm, is I think that you sort of mentally prepare, take a deep breath, make sure that you just let your own levels of anxiety calm, nothing, dramatic. A long time ago, ever since I've, started in production, I've always kept up my first aid training, just because it's useful to have first aiders on set. And one of the things I've always learned from that is calm, just nothing in a hurry. You just calm it right down, make everyone take a breath, go, okay, what is the most dangerous? Like, obviously make sure that we get rid of danger straight away. So if there's, a piece of machinery that's not working or whatever it is, whatever the danger is, we stop that immediately. Then the most important thing is making sure if anyone's hurt that their medical attention is dealt with immediately. And then from there, I think the next thing is really getting whoever is my contact, so if it's the agency or the client or whoever the key stakeholders are of that day, together as soon as possible and go, okay, this is what's happened. I'm a huge believer in speed and transparency, and just saying, this is what's happened. I couldn't care less as to how or why. We can deal with blame and all those things later, but this is what's happening right now. What can we do? So making sure that everybody's safety and well-being is settled. Then we'll look at what we need to shoot for the rest of the day. Realistically, what elements of that are going to be able to go ahead and not going to be able to go ahead, whether they're interested in talking about insurance and how we can, process potentially picking things up on another day. And I think it's about, again, as always for me, it's always about being collaborative and going, okay, this isn't a situation where we should be trying to make money. This is a situation where we go, all right, I'm happy to come back. Like if it was nobody's fault and I'm available and whoever else is available to do a pickup, we're happy to do things at, like, just go, okay, we'll do this as a, just hard costs to you, or, find a way to come to the party where we go, no one should be profiting off there being an issue. I think that's where trust is really important, and making sure everyone knows that you're there for the greater good. You want to find an amicable response. Everyone's going to have to, like, I think we did that during COVID. There were definitely a couple of times when jobs, I can't remember the specifics now, where either jobs got cancelled or hero talent couldn't turn up, or there was some reason, there was a medley of things that happened while we were shooting during COVID. And my response was that we all just had to put our big pants on, like, it's not the client's fault, so they shouldn't have to bear the brunt of paying for a whole shoot if it wasn't, it's not on them. But likewise, I'm a production company, it's not my fault either. So I think we all go, okay, you're the head of that, I'm the head of this, you're the head of that. Why don't we all go, there's going to be a 10K discrepancy here. We'll all split it 3 ways, or, something like that, so that everybody feels like, I just think the way that you should approach business is how you approach life, that you should be a reasonable person, and do what feels fair, so that if you were to ever have to stand up at the gates of heaven, or I don't know, in front of the tax man or whatever, if you can stand there and say, I feel genuinely I did the best to my ability to resolve this in the most amicable and reasonable way possible, without, trying to manipulate the situation, then I can feel happy that I did the right thing.
Two things about that, Nat. What's it like now when you're working with stunts? Have you got a particular way when you are dealing with stunts? Is there particular people you go to? Do you want to know certain things? How do you go about keeping a set safe?
So I think stunts are really, I think people forget how slow they are. I've done quite a lot of stunt work, and the reset time is massive. And reset time is massive, and prep time. And I think all of those things are really important. I would like to live my whole life knowing that I never killed anyone or harmed anyone on set, So I think it's just about making sure everyone's really aware of all the parameters that are to do with the stunt, and then all the things outside of that, like how would weather affect this, or how would timings affect this, because once you're all there and you've got a crew of 40 people standing around, even though we've said, oh, we're going to give them 45 minutes to set up, if we're half an hour behind, without meaning to, there will just be that natural pressure of quick, no, let's just get it done in half an hour. And it's you have to be able to be really strong and go, no, we're not, we can hurry other things. We're not hurrying this, So I think it's just about making sure that you listen to the experts. If your stunt coordinator says you need extra safety people, you need more prep time, is that you listen to that, because that's something that's not worth getting wrong.
Nat, what about your next story? What have you got? What have you got?
This last one is just a silly one, but I thought it might resonate with some people. So this, again, a long time ago, this was a job that I was shooting for Zurich Bank. Well, we're going into our final PPM, and this was probably one of the first big final PPMs I had run, and it was a big job. I can't remember who the agency was, but it was a big agency, big bank client. So there's probably about 20 people in this room. And I was really nervous. This was one of my first big presentations, running it. I was probably 23 or 24. It was really nerve-wracking. And I had the whole thing playing off my laptop. So I turn up, everyone has their sort of bound, final PPM documents. I don't know, it's like 80 pages or something. And we go through all the cast and locations and the pigs and, post and music and all of the bits and pieces. And when I turn up in the room, I'm really I'm trying to seem very calm, but my heart's going and I'm sweaty and I'm just sort of talking even faster than I normally do. So I get up to walk over to my laptop, because, we're at the end of the meeting and we're all doing that, great, fantastic, all looking forward to. And the music was playing out of iTunes. And I had recently watched the Monty Python, The Meaning of Life, and had downloaded the song from the end of that, just as a funny thing, because it's a funny song. And as I'm walking over to my laptop and there's speakers, to this room of 20 people, as I get there, the first line of this Monty Python song comes up. And Eric Idle, I think, from the Monty Python, at the final scene of the film, is Eric sitting naked at a piano singing, "Isn't it awfully nice to have a penis?" And that just plays out from my laptop. And I just as I get to it, it just starts singing out. And I just shut the laptop and everyone's in the room what did her computer just say? And I'm anyway, so yeah, talking about shoot dates and how we're getting there. And we just I just keep talking. I don't think I took a breath from the minute that played until I left the room. Just bright red. Anyway, it was all fine. But I think what I learned from that is that just be mindful of what is on your computer when you're presenting. It could be a song, it could be a video, it could be text messages popping up when you're presenting. I've had quite a few things that have caught me out before. So I think that's a good one to remember, that yes, no matter how childish you are in your personal life, it's best to try and keep a little bit of a break between your work presentations and your silliness.
So do not disturb, put that, I guess, have that on. I know with Macs you put do not disturb and nothing comes through. Wise to have these countless stories. We could go back through people who have had presentations where they've been caught out with what's on their laptop or what they've been looking at. So certainly be mindful of that. Hey, what about when you are running big PPMs? Obviously, they probably come pretty second nature to you these days. You've done so many. If somebody is running a PPM, what do you think the trick is to running a really successful PPM? Something that doesn't get bogged down, something that moves really well. You got any tips or tricks?
Yeah, I think be mindful of the time. I think definitely some people get a little bit caught up in particularly through nervousness. I think sometimes people get sort of a bit too caught in the weeds on certain things. And you're like, particularly if it's a bigger job where it's like, we have seen these scripts 100 times, I think it helps definitely at the beginning to kind of set up with the client that you're like, we're going to go through this quite quickly. At any time, you can stop us and slow us down. But just to stop us from going over the same ground we've been over 20 times before, the scripts, are there any changes? No, let's keep going. The storyboards, as they were approved, let's keep going. And I just think it sort of helps to keep a momentum through it. I think chucking in a couple of little positive comments as we go through, really excited to work with these particular talent. They're going to be fantastic. Something about why they're great, or, really love the look of the wardrobe. The stylist has done a fantastic job. Just little things that help keep reminding everyone that we're really backing, the decisions that we've made, and we feel really positive about them. I think just sort of general positivity throughout and keeping it moving. Stopping when people need to, but sometimes if you let it stop for too long, and then suddenly you get that weird thing where everyone feels like they need to say something, and then something that was just one little comment starts unpicking something, and you're like, no, we don't know, we're not going back to that now, that's already approved, just keep going. Because I think that's the danger, I think, is that sometimes people feel like they should say something even though they're probably too late, and unless it's a really key stakeholder who's got a real reason for it, if it's just people feeling like they want to add their 2 cents, sometimes that's unhelpful.
Nat, fantastic stories. It set the high bar. I tell you, you've experienced it all, and I guess 2 things. One, it makes you such an experienced producer, which a lot of people know and understand. But 2, the biggest part is there's always a way through it, and
Yes.
it's I think in all the situations you've had there, it's probably managing yourself. I think there's always trips and ticks. There's always tips and tricks to getting through something, being proactive, working, being thorough. But when it comes to yourself individually, I think the biggest thing is also take a breath.
Yes. 100%. I think also actually one, as we were talking, I remembered, there are many, many stories. We could go late into the night. But I do remember one a long time ago as well, where we were shooting at a location that was a massive building, and we needed the underground car park, the lobby, and then a boardroom. And we'd managed to get all 3 in one place. And our location manager had got it all signed off with the person he thought was the building manager, but it turned out to be the building manager's assistant. And the building manager turned up on the shoot being very angry that we were in his building, and there was a whole bunch of faffing around that we had to do to get him on side. And essentially we probably lost about an hour's overtime to all the crew, which, was expensive. And I think in the end I gave him like $200 and he went away. And if I'd known that 5 minutes in and not an hour and 5 minutes in, it would have saved me about $5,000. So I think knowing yourself, knowing that you're replaceable, being able to take a breath. And then also, I think in any situations where the challenge is coming specifically from another person, is having empathy to understand why they're reacting the way they are, and not just how it's impacting you, but how it's impacting them. And that helps you solve it from their point of view more than sometimes some people just need to be heard. And I think that is a really good tip for generally dealing with people making your jobs more difficult.
Great words of advice. Nat, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for jumping on. Really appreciate it.
Lovely to see you. Take care. Thanks.
Take care. Well, that's it for today on Make the Logo Bigger. Thanks for hanging out with us. We've shared some insights and stories that I hope you found useful. Whether you're just getting started or diving deeper into ad production, there's always more to explore. Keep listening, stay curious, and we'll be back soon with some more from the world of production. Take care until then.